Woo-wee! It's been a while since we've done one of these videos. I miss it. Thank you to everybody who's here. I appreciate you. My room's a mess. Today we're going to talk about something different. And here's what I'm going to say. That Flesh and Blood can never be Pokemon. But it doesn't have to, okay? So here's my understanding of the Flesh and Blood community. It seems like there's a lot of like older generation, my age, we'll call them dads. Like you don't have to actually be a kid, but you know, like guys who are like in their 30s, like 25 to 35, which puts us in a generation of people who grew up with Pokemon. This is my Bill's PC. You may have seen that in the background. If you open up Bill's PC, you see my full collection of Pokemon cards. It starts with, it goes all the way through. We'll do a video on it sometime, but it's all, it's not base set. It's base set and set 2 or whatever. And it's all the Pokemon. There's a Charizard everybody likes, right? And when I was 27, how old am I now? No. When I was 24, I think, I completed my Pokemon Pokedex, and it was a great accomplishment. But here's the thing about Pokemon. Pokemon is an IP, right? An intellectual property, I think that's what that means, that is worth millions, billions of dollars, right? It's actually, Gary Vee thinks that it's undervalued, right? Like, that the IP is undervalued. And for Flesh and Blood to succeed, I think people kind of compare it, because it's a card game, to something like Pokemon. And I think we'll get to Magic the Gathering too, but in order for Flesh and Blood to succeed, we don't ever have to get to the point of Pokemon. Like, we don't ever have to get to the point where Charizard's selling for, I don't know, I think I saw one for like $1 million or something like that. I can't remember exactly. $300,000? I can't remember. Anyway, we don't have to get to the point where that's happening. We just need a game to be fun. And I think people get this idea that Flesh and Blood needs to be like the biggest game. It needs to break into the top 3. It needs to be Pokemon and Magic the Gathering and Flesh and Blood. And the truth of the matter is that Flesh and Blood can stay a game with a sizable community of 1 million people, and it can still be a huge success. It doesn't have to blow Pokemon out of the water. It doesn't have to blow Magic the Gathering out of the water, because I think the target demographic of a game like Flesh and Blood is older. I mean, if you think about what Magic the Gathering is doing right now, they are trying to be Pokemon. Like, they are trying to get this IP, and, they already have an IP. Sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that, but they're trying to maximize their IP for profit rather than create a fun game. Like Pokemon, like, I think the majority, I think I've played one game of Pokemon my entire life, and I've owned these cards since 1998. Right? Like, I've owned these cards for forever, since I was a kid. I think I've only actually played one game of Pokemon. It's not about the game. I don't know. I'm sure there are people who actually play the game and care about it, but really for most Pokemon collectors, it's about the collection. For Magic the Gathering, it's always been more about the game than it was about collecting, and now it's trying to change up, right? Like, Magic the Gathering is doing these weird things where it's trying to maximize its IP and do secret layers that have Walking Dead, and pretty soon you'll see a Ninja Turtles, or you'll see, you'll be playing and everything's a rock and roll poster, and it's like, at some point they stopped caring about the game. And for Flesh and Blood to succeed, it doesn't have to do those things. It doesn't need a Netflix series. It doesn't need lunchboxes and new shoes and a sports jacket. It doesn't need that. All it needs to do is be a really good game that's fun to play, and that will be a huge success. Way bigger than we think it is right now. And so I guess what I'm ranting about is, like, why do we need to compare? Why do we need to see Flesh and Blood? People got so excited when we saw Flesh and Blood in the top TCG player, right? Like, when you go to TCG player and you used my code in the description, and you go to TCG player, right, and it says, it said Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh!, some other game, and Flesh and Blood. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, yeah. And it does make it easier to look for the cards because you don't have to go through a thing. But the point was, people were like, we made it in the top 4. And, like, that's great. And I really hope that happens. But even if it doesn't happen, Flesh and Blood can be a success. Like, we can just enjoy the game for what it is and not worry about what other people want it to be. Sorry, not worry about wanting other people to see it as that. I think if you look at the current facts, right? Let's back up and look at the facts. Most LGSs right now that are stocking Flesh and Blood are making more money off of Flesh and Blood than they are Magic the Gathering. I don't know about Pokemon. I don't dabble in that world enough, and my LGS doesn't do a lot of Pokemon. But Yu-Gi-Oh! I think they're making more money off Flesh and Blood than Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it's a really good card game, and so people want the cards. And it's not overprinted, so there's value in the cards. And, you know, I think the idea behind a game that you can get together with your friends and play in the Flesh and Blood is genius, because it doesn't have to be this massive IP that, like, kids are going nuts over, and that's selling lunch boxes, and that's making a video game. Like, it doesn't need to be that to be successful. I think Pokemon's goal always was to be a successful IP. If you think about the gotta catch 'em all Pokemon, right? Like, it was ingrained in us as kids, right? Like, as kids, you sat in front of the TV and it was like, you have to, and then you go out, and then when you're 24 years old, you buy all the cards still. Like, that was ingrained in us, but that doesn't need to be ingrained in Flesh and Blood, because the card game is good, and because the actual play of the game is fun, and because it unites people and brings people in. And now let's get back to Magic the Gathering, because I think what we see here is a giant void that's being left by Magic the Gathering. Because I think for people in our generation, I'm projecting myself onto all of you right now, but people in my generation, my group of people, my age group, we grew up collecting cards, right? We grew up collecting Pokemon. And then Magic the Gathering quickly hit us, right? And we're like, oh my gosh, I can actually play with the cards? That's amazing. And then we found out that we really love meeting together with our friends and sitting across the table with our friends. But then all of a sudden now, it's like, that's not really that much fun anymore. Like, the gameplay just wasn't that much fun anymore, because they broke it. They did too much with it. They pushed it to sell packs. And so now you sit down and you play Flesh and Blood and you say, oh my gosh, the gameplay is there. Like, it's all of a sudden more fun. It's like, I'm excited to play with my friends. I'm excited to get together and, like, actually play the game. And, like, collecting, it's fun, all that, but it's fun to play. And so I think Magic has left a void for people where, like, we used to love playing so much, and then all of a sudden that was kind of ripped in the last year and a half, 2 years. You know, ever since really, like, War of the Spark was great, but then the sets after it just kind of felt bad. And it was like they kept banning cards, and Standard was a mess, and it broke Modern, and even Legacy for a while. I don't play Legacy, but even Legacy for a while was broken because of it. And so I feel like there's a hole there that Flesh and Blood can fill, and that's all. Like, if Flesh and Blood just fills that hole of people, it's going to be a freaking wild success. Like, it already is filling that hole, and that's what I'm saying. It's going to be a wild success, but it doesn't have to be Pokemon. Like, it just doesn't have to. So that's my soapbox today. I don't know. I was just really feeling it. I saw that. I realized I don't think I ever told you guys what was in there. And so I wanted to show that off a little bit, but also just, like, tell you my feelings. I don't think that it has to be this massive IP to be a success. I think it can just be a really good game. Hey, remember to be kind to the people around you. Remember, it's just a game, right? Like, we play it. You want to see some cool Pokemon cards? Like, oh, you know what? I have, like, a first edition Bulbasaur. It's, like, absolutely ridiculous. It's like absolutely ridiculous. It's a first edition Shadowless. Like, I found it in my attic the other day. Look at that. Like, can you see that? Oh, first edition Shadowless Bulbasaur. How much do you think that is right now? Guess. It's like $130, like, for a common. That's absolutely stupid. Anyway, I was just trying to fill the 10-minute video. I hope you have a good day.